Cultural heritage is an expression of the ways of living developed by community and passed on from generation to generation, including customs, practices, places or sites, objects, artistic expression, and values. The history and culture of the Philippines are reflected in its architectural heritage, in the lodges from its various people, in mosques and churches, and in buildings that have risen in responses to the demand of progress and aspiration of a person. We have a lot of sites of Filipino cultural heritage, such as Poway Church, Church of San Agustin in Manila, Rice Terraces of Philippine Cordilleras, Puerto Princesa River, and many more. But today, let me take you to the historic city of Vigan.
Historic City of Vigan. The best conserved example of a planned Spanish colonial in Asia is the historic city of Vigan that was established during the 16th century. Its architecture mirrors the coming together of social components from elsewhere in the Philippines, from China, and from Europe, bringing about a culture and townscape that have no similar any place in East and Southeast Asia. The two-story structures are built of brick and wood, with a steeply pitched rooftop suggestive of traditional Chinese design. The outside walls of the upper story are encased by window panels of capiz shells outlined in wood which can be slid back for better ventilation. Most of the current structures were likely worked during the mid-18th to late 1900s.
After the signing of the Treaty of Paris in December 1898, transferring the fate of the Philippine Islands from Spanish colonial masters to American ones, the North became the site of many of the battles against the Americans fought by the Filipino resistance movement, who in the beginning thought that the Americans were there to help them in the Philippine fight for independence. Like the rest of the country, Vigan continued on through America's period of benevolent assimilation, after the revolutionaries surrendered in 1901 and until World War II reached its shores when the Japanese occupied the country in 1942. When the Japanese forces began their retreat in 1945, they tried to inflict as much destruction on the towns they had occupied. However, Vigan was spared from burning by the Japanese and the American Liberation Forces bombings, which leveled the cities of Baguio, Cebu, and Manila, making Manila World War II's a second most destroyed city next to Warsaw. In 1948, then President Manuel Rojas suffered a heart attack while delivering a speech in Clarkfield, Pampanga. The first president of the Republic of the Philippines after its independence from the Americans died, leaving then Vice President Elpidio Quirino as the next president. Vigan is proud of the fact that the sixth president of the country is a Bigueño, and shares as much knowledge about their city's beloved son, such as his being born in the structure that houses Vigan's provincial jail. This interesting information about his birth is due to the fact that his father served as Vigan's prison warden at that time. Vigan became a hotspot of political feuding in the 70s. It was the time of political warlords with private armies. The whole nation's attention was held in 1970 by the violent death of Congressman Floro Crisologo, patriarch of the powerful political family of the Crisologos. The site of his untimely death is the St. Paul Cathedral where he was attending Mass. Upon the ashes of his death, a new political family rose into power, that of the Singson. The brothers Luis and Evaristo became Ilocos Sur's governor and Vigan's mayor respectively.
and noise pollution have become a serious issue in Vigan. People are becoming aware of the negative effects brought about by these environmental concerns on the health of the people. We all know that pollution has a number of negative effects on the nation building, as it costs human lives, reduces people's ability to work, affects essential products such as food, damages cultural and historical monuments, reduces ecosystems' ability to perform functions that society requires, and costs money in remediation or restoration. In other words, pollution can bring down the productivity of a developing country like the Philippines and prove expensive by increasing health costs, apart from reducing crop yields and impacting biodiversity and ecosystems. It should be emphasized that in a place designated as a United Nations World Heritage Site, programs should be in place to control and minimize pollution. Most air pollution is attributed to emissions made by more than 3,500 tricycles and scooters in the city. Many of these run on two-stroke engines, thereby producing harmful emissions from inefficient combustion of fuel. The Land Transportation Office has the mandate to ensure that vehicles comply with air emission standards as stipulated in the Philippines Clean Air Act of 1999. They often deputize local police to enforce regulations. As such, it is expected that with strict and proper monitoring of vehicles, including tricycles and scooters, the emission problem can be solved. Meanwhile, the city government of Vigan has instituted Ordinance Number 17, Series of 2002, and disseminates proper knowledge among citizens pertaining to the negative effects of air pollution. Prior to its inscription to the World Heritage List, thousands of tourists come year-round, especially in Crisologo Street, or also known as Calle Crisologo, causing shortage of parking areas and rooms while increasing the volume of trash, becoming a threat to the site. Traditional houses are becoming transformed into hotels at an alarming rate, driving the local inhabitants out and threatening the town's integrity and authenticity. In the city of Vigan, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Ilocos Sur Province, official statements of financial performance for first half of 2016 show that income from services and businesses and grants and donations overtook tax revenues in the first half of the year, with the latter at 19.8% and the former 22.8% of the city's total income. Changes in the city challenges the conservation and preservation of the continuity and continuing relevance of the culture of the local community. However, if the alarming changes in the city continues, the local government and the local inhabitants of Vigan will have a hard time conserving and preserving the heritage. These alarming changes may reduce the authenticity and beauty and may lead to misuse and destruction of Vigan. There will be less tourists, thus the revenues of the city will also lessen. This problem of Vigan was used by researchers at the LTE Center for Global Heritage and Development as a test case for the application of a HIA to chart the consequences of policy plans, such as setting a limit on the number of hotels in the town center. One of the solutions that was assessed positively was the proposal to spread tourism over the regions around Vigan. This arose from the realization that many tourists visit Vigan not only for the town itself, but also for the traditional handcrafts. These crafts are made and sold throughout the whole region, which means tourists can view the handcrafts without Vigan itself becoming overrun by tourists.
It is critical to maintain Filipino cultural heritage as it offers meaning and purpose to how we live in the past and present. It displays our ideas and traditions, giving form and shape to our values, rituals, and aspiration, while also ensuring our Filipino identity. The historic city of Vigan is the best preserved example of a cultural heritage as it was completed with comparatively limited resources, had a good integration of the community in several aspects of the property's sustainable conservation, and lastly, it had a multi-faceted framework to the site's protection. From the colonial period up to the present, it had a significant impact on the region's different sectors, particularly in terms of its economic and political aspects. As a cultural heritage, it did not escape from issues and problems that it may face such as air and noise pollution as well as the negative impact brought by tourism. Moreover, these issues can be solved by broad strict implementation of rules. With this, the idea that all of country's cultural heritage belongs to all citizens equally is a valuable one in terms of nation building and economic prosperity. In pursuit of nation building, government should explore strategies and techniques that will promote identification, such as Filipino cultural heritage, that can certainly strengthen the feelings of national identity and to unify the people so that it become and remain politically viable and stable over the long term.